I think again, I referred to your notes quite a bit. You had sent a very lovely compilation that was I found to be quite sufficient. Hi, sir.
Hello, Pallavi. Congratulations.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Okay, so this I do each year, right? You must be aware of this, right? So what I do that I will be asking a series of questions, and in that try to be, a bit more elaborative. The intention is to help the students who are preparing with law optional. So I will stick myself with the law optional itself, right? Nothing else. Okay. So let us start. So first, introduce yourself. Tell me about yourself.
My name is Pallavi Mishra. I've been able to secure rank 73 in UPSC CSE 2022. I'm a law graduate from National Law University, Delhi, and I've been born and brought up in Bhopal.
Okay. So how did you, when did you start preparing with law optional?
When did I start preparing with law optional? I think this was my second attempt. In my first attempt, I didn't really get a chance to work on my law optional prior to the mains preparation. So only after clearing prelims in my first attempt did I even look at what I wanted to study in the law optional, etc. Because I was rushing to finish GS syllabus for prelims in my first attempt. After that, I think what really struck me was that even though I know my basics and my concepts are mostly clear because I do have a law degree, I needed to work on adding technical details, adding case laws. I needed to work on adding the flourish, for instance, that you need to write legal answers. That is what I started to work on in my second attempt. So after my mains preparation, I think it lent a lot to me learning the syllabus, reading about the syllabus, finding out the sources for the syllabus. And then also the first mains attempt gave me a very good idea of what kind of questions are asked, what the paper pattern is, how to attempt answers, etc. So in my first attempt, although I would say I was not able to succeed, it did help me sort of prepare a foundation or a base that I didn't have prior to that. Post that, in my second attempt, I really started focusing on answer writing, for instance. That was, I think, my most important priority because after a point you realize that there is only so much content that you can fit into 150 words. And even if you know everything about a particular topic, there's only very limited information that you can put into it, right? So I started focusing on studying the syllabus all over again with that perspective. So for instance, if I were to study a particular topic like homicide or any subject in criminal law, I would start mentally preparing answers while I was reading the subject. That way, what I knew was there are certain case laws that I would want to put in if a particular question was framed. That way, I had a ready introduction in my head, a ready conclusion in my head, all while I was just reading the syllabus in itself. I think that really cut down on the preparation time for me.
So how much time did you take for the preparation around, I think?
Around, it was very scattered for me because I can't sort of enumerate how long it took me. But I would say that if I had to pin down a number around, I spent around 2.5, 3 months on it. At max.
You were already a law graduate, so
that came in handy quite a bit, yes.
Okay, so let me start with the individual subjects. Okay, so let us start with the constitutional law. There are a lot of dynamic questions, current affair based questions,
Right.
philosophical type of question. How did you handle it, or how did you prepare for that?
I think constitutional law, as you said, is very dynamic and it's quite unexpected because you don't really know what you're going to get out of it, what question is going to be asked. Also, it's such a vast subject that you can't really pin down how to prepare for it in a very strategic fashion. So my first priority with constitutional law always was current affairs. I wanted to be updated with the new cases that were being adjudicated, new matters that were being discussed. And I also referred a lot on my polity notes and my polity preparation to sort of flesh that out and make it my constitutional law preparation. So that was my first priority when it came to constitutional law. Secondly, I relied heavily on book keys. I can't remember.
Everyone, yeah, the keys are perfect, right? So
which
one did you relied more? That Jan one or the single one?
Single one, sir. I think I have the single one for constitutional law. And I think that is the course material that we would refer to when in a rush in university as well. So I was familiar with it initially. That's why I chose it. And I realized that, again, in 250 words, you don't need more than single. There is nothing you can write. You can't write. It's
More
physically
than that.
impossible.
Impossible. Yeah.
So I
Even
thought it
listing
was
the cases itself will take 100 words in
yeah, exactly.
writing the case. That's very good. Okay. So current affair, where did you collect it? Obviously, I keep sending some of the stuff, but apart from that, where did you collect it, that current affair?
I subscribed to Supreme Court Observer, which came quite handy because I was able to refer to it quite a lot. So all the pending litigation cases, they write very detailed analysis and summaries or expert opinions on their website as well. So it gives you a good perspective. So I refer to Supreme Court Observer. Then there are a lot of newspaper publications like The Wire, for instance. They also publish very good and fleshed out articles on many legal issues. Uh, then, therefore, constitutional law particularly, there is a website or a blog called Incon Lawful that is run by Advocate
Gautam, not Gautam, sorry.
Gautam Bhatia, sorry.
Gautam Bhatia.
Gautam Bhatia. Right. So that also is, first of all, it's an interesting read. So you're invited to read it. And it's very detailed. It's quite a fresh,
Philosophical, yeah.
critical analysis of issues that you wouldn't find otherwise.
Very fresh look at the case, right? People often criticize it to be, sort of yes, leftist sort of articulation, but that is not the case. In my opinion, it is very, good and
It's quite balanced. You need that sort of perspective as well.
very good. Okay, there's one website also you can refer. I mean, from the last 2-3 months, I was referring the leaflet.in.
Yes, sir, exactly. Right. The leaflet is also a very good publication. It's quite insightful.
Okay, because that current affair that I've been sending from last, 1 month or so, I've been taking news items from them, leaflet also. It's really very good.
Oh, okay.
So what about the international law? I know the paper is, almost repetitive each year. So what you do something new, because international law paper also you wrote. I was looking at your answers again, right? So what new did you put it in, right? Because obviously, suppose there's a question with regard to theories of international law or the relationship between municipal and international law, right? So we know that, okay, dualism, monism, but what extra did you write?
I think one extra flourish, let's say, that you can add is always, as I said, current affairs, because international law is so fast developing that it's extremely dynamic. So whenever you want to add something new to your answers that, it's going to catch the attention of the person who's checking them, you can always add examples of recent current affairs events, recent international law developments, recent cases. So that is one thing that I focused on. And secondly, I noticed that international law is not a particular area where you have a particular statute. You can't easily refer to sections. You don't have legislations. So my strategy was to use those things as much as possible. So I would refer to the UN Charter wherever possible. I would refer to as many ICJ cases that I could remember at that moment. And the beauty of ICJ cases is that they are very all encapsulating.
Almost you can cite.
Yeah, you can basically take one case law and then put it everywhere. So those are the few tricks that I try to use. So I memorized the UN Charter quite thoroughly, especially the use of 4 sections. I paid special attention to them. I memorized the WTO Charter, the TRIPS Charter. I looked at it. I sort of picked a few sections that I knew I wanted to put in my answers. So if a particular question came on that topic, I would have some section number to write. I would have some treaty to write.
Writing the sections is quite important. Yes.
Right. That was my strategy.
Okay. Now let us come to paper 2, right? So in paper 2, how did you study this criminal law?
Criminal law, again, I said for criminal law, actually, I found it the easiest because there is a set strategy for it. You know that the boss is the statute. You have to learn IPC. IPC is God. So anything that's written in the section, you can just recreate in your answers as it is. So that I think is a good strategy to follow for criminal law. So my first focus, of course, was IPC. I wanted to know it in and out, at least all the sections that were concerned with the syllabus. I wanted to know it well. After that, I referred to, again, Singhals. I referred to the Dukhi that is available. And then for some sections that aren't covered in Singhal, I referred to Pillai.
Okay. Now, what about that philosophical type of topic, right? Emerging trends as to the punishment, or
right.
How did you tackle those?
Sir, I think there is a very sufficient chapter on types of punishment and philosophy on punishment that is covered in Singhal. The last chapter, I think. and it covers the death penalty quite sufficiently as well. And I thought that, again, my strategy was 250 words, very limited knowledge you can put into it. I'm going to limit myself to it. I didn't want to go into the philosophy of it too much anyways.
Actually, this
So
is
I
the
very,
one key takeaway, right? Because when I start a batch, I tell them, right, we are not here to do PhD.
yeah,
Right? First and foremost, try to understand it.
you
Not
you
here to
can't
do
learn
PhD.
law here. You just have to learn how to write answers.
Whatever you have to write answer, then just focus on that. It's very correct. Okay, now let us come to this taught. How much time did you give in taught? Because taught relatively
Thoughts.
quite a small, I guess. How did you go about it?
So my strategy, especially for paper two, was that there are options. There is part one, part two, and you can choose one question, right? So I thought that torts and criminal law are two areas that are quite definitive. They are not as dynamic as the other parts of the syllabus. So this is an area that I paid special attention to because I knew कि यहाँ पे जो option होगा वो मैं कर पाऊंगी. तो मैंने torts पे भी काफी ध्यान दिया. I referred to Bangya and I paid very special attention to it. And this is in fact the only subject that I made notes for.
Okay, torts.
Because its torts seems to be so repetitive. It's over and over and over the same ratio, the same case law, the same fact situation.
But, I will tell you a very interesting thing that the taught paper, that the test paper that you gave, that taught one, right? I keep giving same questions year after year, right? Some of the students tell me also to say giving the same question, and UPC is giving the same question.
Yeah.
Why do you want to do some innovative and write whatever you want? Just to stick to the repeated question. Very good. Okay, so for crime and tort, repetitive question is much more important.
Very important.
Constitution, little bit dynamicity.
Little bit dynamic, you can go, exactly.
Okay, now let us come to the part B, that CLD part specifically. First, tell me, how did you go about that CLD portion?
Sorry, sir?
CLD
contracts.
No, first CLD.
Constitutional legal developments.
Yeah, contemporary.
Right. Hi, sir.
Hello, Pallavi. Congratulations.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
I also try to give those articles, right? Because sometimes articles are so nicely written, right?
Yeah.
That is perfect.
That you're able to go through them. I think that was quite helpful. And apart from them, that I think you're reading so many current affairs. You're reading about it so much in polity. You're reading about it all the time. You're referring to PRS legislative, the website, over and over because you are looking at new legislations, looking at new case laws. So I think a lot of it is instinctive and it's intuitive also. So if a competition amendment law is coming out or if it's being discussed, then you know that it's possible इसमें से question आ सकता है.
Yeah, arbitration का कोई नया concept अगर
कोई नया concept आ सकता है. हाँ. So that was my strategy. And apart from them, I learned the basics of basically all the legislations mentioned above the constitutional legal development. So once you do all of that, आप कुछ ना कुछ तो लिख ही देंगे.
जैसे ये बताइए जो CLD में environment law का portion है, तो वैसे मैं notes में तो brief दिया था, एक environment law का के brief है, उसमें detail भी पढ़ा या that brief was sufficient?
Sir, environment law was something that I had read quite a bit in law school. So I knew कि ये मुझे थोड़ा बहुत आता है. And it's also quite connected to international law in some aspects as well. And that is something, again, that I was interested in law school, so I read up on it. So I had a good dukki in which my detailed notes were made from law school. Okay, so I went over all of it. I went through all the past year questions. पिछले 15 साल के questions तो मैंने पूरे solve करे हैं. और उसमें से मैंने selected environment law के जितने भी questions थे, पहले उनको देखा. I picked out all the important topics from there. Went over those topics in the Dukki, and then all the other topics that I thought were very important, I went over those from the book, from Singhal. I think A.K. Jain. A.K. Jain is the book I referred to.
Okay, now let us come to the last, that is your this contract law. Now in that contract law, there are a lot of topics which we study in a whole semester, right? That negotiable instrument and sales of goods act, etc.
All of it.
So how did you cover them?
Sir, my first priority was legislation. When it came to, honestly, paper two, all I did was read legislations over and over again. I read contract acts over and over, agency wala section portion also. I read many times. I read the Sale of Goods Act. I would print out all the legislations and keep making small notes and adding sections or adding any case laws that I wanted to add in front of that particular section. So I would make my notes in the legislation only. So my prime source was the legislation itself. for Negotiable Instruments Act, it's very difficult to just stick to the legislation. It's quite
Quite lengthy, yeah.
complex.
But
So
legislation
that
is
for
quite
that I
complex.
refer to I bought a Dukki for that also.
Okay.
And I just, like a novel, I read it once to understand the basic concepts. I was again very lucky to have a fantastic professor in law school who had focused a lot on the basics for Negotiable Instruments Act. So I didn't have to worry too much about being able to understand it. I was able to complete it rather fast. So I went over the NI Act Dukki once, and then I stuck to the legislation.
Okay, good. Okay, now let me ask one unique question, right? Do you think or have you prepared law optional along with your GS paper by identifying some of the overlapping areas, or you prepared them separately?
Sir, I think both, because of course there is going to be an overlap. It's a very dynamic syllabus in itself, and there are many overlaps everywhere. But there has to be a different kind of a perspective when you're preparing for law. So if you're reading a particular topic, you look at it from a policy perspective when you're reading it for GS subjects versus a very legal and technical perspective when you're reading it for the law optional. So even if there were certain issues or certain topics that had overlap, when I was preparing for my law optional specifically, I would revise them all over again and try to look at it from a different perspective. Again, I would start constructing answers in my head. What I can write here, what all answers I can put in, what all sections I can put in here, if this is an answer I want to write for my option.
Okay. So it means that you sort of followed both the strategy. Now,
You can't, sir, I think in 3 months, there is all hodgepodge. You can't strategize, you can't divide in your head. You're studying so much all the time. There are so many things going through your head. You just have to keep yourself sane. That's my strategy. Just don't go mad.
No. Now, the last question that I will ask is that with regard to, as I will deem you to be fresher itself, right? Because last year the attempt was not very nice. This year you gave a full-fledged attempt. So if someone wants to qualify in the first attempt, right now, suppose you, in the hindsight, if you knew that, okay, these things can be done. So what could you have done in 4th and 5th year so that along with it you could qualify?
That's a very good question. I think in the 4th and 5th year, you do have to sacrifice quite a bit of your college life if you want to prepare for it then. I made the decision quite late after I'd gotten a job, after I'd finished law school. It was a few months after finishing law school that I decided to do this. But if in the 4th and 5th year I had to prepare for this, I would firstly focus on finishing the syllabus as soon as possible in the first go. I would suggest that in the 4th year, if you are preparing, if you have 2 years timeline with you, then in the first year, I would focus on really.
So ideal time is for 4th or 5th year.
Sorry?
Ideal time is 4th or 5th year.
Sir, according to me, I genuinely believe that you should live your college life. You want this exam is not the end and be all of anything. It's a job interview. It's a job examination. I know it carries a lot of significance. It carries a lot of weight, but I genuinely I'm fortunate that I got to have a very happy college life, especially in the 4th and 5th year when all the tension, starts leaving your body. I got my job in my 4th year. I had fun. I spent time with my friends that I wasn't able to do in the first 3 or 4 years because you're just constantly studying, you're mooting or you're debating or you're doing XYZ things. So I would say if you are focused on it and if this is your priority, then I would say finish your syllabus as fast as possible and start focusing on tests, both prelims tests as well as answer writing tests. I think you don't need to spend 2 years reading NCRTs. I think it's genuinely not as productive as perhaps just writing a lot of tests.
That is actually true for law students, right? For law graduate, it is quite true because you study a lot of things, right? It is not like normal graduation. You have legislation covering security, economics, geography, everything, every legislation you have.
Yes, you have a dual degree, so you're studying BA subjects as well. In the 4th and 5th year, though, it gets much easier. At least in my university, it got much easier because your BA degree is over in 3 years. And then your subjects get drastically reduced. The pressure of studying is also reduced. You have 2 clinics, which means that there is ample time on your hands to do extracurriculars, to prepare for this examination. So if you do want to do it, and if you have decided before 4th year, then I think you can do it adequately well. I would again say that you should focus on finishing the syllabus as soon as possible because it's a never-ending syllabus. People often think that जितने अच्छे से अभी पढ़ लेंगे ना बिल्कुल याद रहेगा 5 साल 5 साल 6 अटेम्प्ट देंगे 6ठे अटेम्प्ट तक याद रहेगा बिल्कुल नहीं रहेगा 2 महीने भी नहीं याद रहेगा.
The revision is the key.
Revision is.
So tell me about something about that your interview experience. What kind of question you got? Obviously, we talked on phone, but here I want to ask you for the interview for the people watching. What kind
My
of
interview
question you
experience,
got?
I think, was quite cordial. It was the first one in the afternoon session. So I think I had the advantage of getting in, giving the interview, and leaving as soon as possible. So I wasn't tired, which many candidates face this problem. Apart from that, again, as I said, they're all professionals. They were very sweet, very nice, very welcoming. They asked me most questions about law. Almost my entire interview was law based. I didn't get any other questions apart from that. And then I think it was nice only.
Okay. What kind of law question they asked you mostly?
Firstly, they talked to me about my DAF. I had written some things in my DAF, moot court competition and debating competition, etc. So they spoke to me about those competitions, where I'd been, what I'd done, what was the subject area of those. Then a few more details about those subject areas. Then they asked me a few questions about constitutional law, about essential tests that are embedded in Part 3. What is Part 3? A little bit about the Uniform Civil Code, they asked. Apart from that, they asked me an interesting question, 5 judgments that have affected or changed the status of women in the country. And a few of them had to be recent. These are the questions that are coming to my mind, but mostly around this only the interview.
Okay. And I wanted to ask about this, this preparation phase sort of student, mentally they want to prepare themselves, right? So you seem to be, taking it quite nicely, but there are some students, who sort of thinks that it is out of the world. You have to, read 18 hours a day, don't have to sleep at a time, right? Any last word for them?
I think you have to find a sustainable pattern of study because 18 hours a day you can't do for more than 3 days. It's impossible, physically impossible for your body. I think you need to treat it like a job. That every day I'm going to my job, I'm going to work for this many hours. Every day I'm going to give it my all, my best, and then I'm going to relax. So that was my strategy, honestly. Because it's a 3-hour long examination, I would divide my day into 3-hour segments. So I would study a minimum of 6 to 7 hours and a maximum of 12 hours. And 12 hours also when it was really nearing the examination. And this is again a mistake that I'd made in my first attempt. I just studied too much. I was constantly studying. I didn't take breaks, didn't give myself time to think. And that really, it bears down on you. You stop being productive. So I would suggest, don't think that this is some massive mountain that you have to climb. Take it one day at a time. Be consistent in your study, be consistent in your preparation, but also take out some time for yourself on a daily basis because your mental health, your emotional health, as well as your physical health is very important. You can't write 9 papers or one after the other if your physical health is not intact, right?
Thank you, Pallavi. It was really very, very, very nice interview.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for having me.